pray as we get with part 2. Father, we again come before you in the name of Jesus, asking for your blessing on this study. Please, through the Holy Spirit, help us to understand these concepts and most importantly, apply them into our lives. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. All right, friends, so we've seen in summary this morning that everything starts in the mind. Starts in the mind through our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And the way they get into our minds is because we, as intelligent beings, we make associations. And the associations are made based on the information that we get. And we know that this information can either be false information or true information. Regardless, we'll get the information and we'll make associations. Now, if it is based on a lie, on a false information, that might lead us into different feelings, different emotions, different thoughts, which consequently will lead us into different actions. That's why it's important to know the truth, because the truth will set you free. Our brains will never be able to understand what is a lie until we know the truth. That's why it's important to understand the truth about ourselves. Because unless you know who you are, you will believe lies that maybe were told you during your childhood, during your teen years, or college time. And we will carry those lies as truth because we cannot discern between truth and lie unless we know the truth. This is the example I was given, that my wife was told by her dad when she was 7 that she was dumb. And she got a slap on her face. Now, the thing that I didn't share is that she did not remember what he said. She only remembered the slap on her face. Not until this, I think it was this year, last time we were in Brazil, we were talking about this with her mom, that her mom told her, hey, that's what he said. All of a sudden, it made complete sense because she was carrying that block in her mind, that emotional block that she was never enough, she was not a good learner, all through these years. And we all know her. She's very smart. She's always active, but that's not her perception about herself. So unless you know the truth about yourself, you really cannot be free. That's why we're going to dive into a little bit of who we are. What is our identity? Because knowing about us, ourselves, the qualities that we have, the skills that we were born, that God gave us, because I believe God gave us talents. Some talents are in the surface. It's easy for us to go and get it. Other talents, we might have to spend more energy to dig, but we still can develop. But why not going for the easy ones first? And increasing that it's easy. You can get it without spending, much energy. So knowing about ourselves, knowing about what is our language of affirmation. Have you heard about Gary Chapman and the 5 languages of love? Right? Knowing how you perceive love is so important in your relationship with your spouse, with your children, with your church members. Because it's not about how much love we give. I may say, I love you very much, my son, but if my son is not perceiving my love, is he feeling loved by me? No, it's about their perception. So I can share my story. My stepdad, his language of love was acts of service. And I didn't know that, and he didn't know that either. Not until now that I'm studying all these things that I can understand, that I can see that. So every time he wants to show his love, what he would do? Acts of service. He will clean the yard. He will wash the car. He will do some fix this or fix that. It was his way of showing love. But for me and my sibling, our language of love was not that. It was a different one. And the thing is, a lot of times we like to receive love in the same way we like to give. So what was he expecting to receive from us? Acts of services. Did I have that perception? I was missing the target all the time. Why you're not cleaning the dog's poop? I always have to ask you to do that. Why you're not taking initiative and doing that? Why you're not cleaning or mowing the lawn? What? Always like this. I felt horrible because my perception is that I was falling short all the time. My language of love was quality time, words of affirmation. My stepdad was never home. No quality time. I don't remember ever he inviting me to hang out with him, spending time with him. Let's hang out together. Never. Not once. I never remember. I don't remember him saying, "Good job. Well done. You're doing great. You're making right decisions." Words of affirmation, never. Was I feeling loved by him? He was showing that he was loving by his acts of services, but what was my perception? So we need to live new experiences. We end up saying that we need to live new experiences if we want to have new results. Now, can you put on the screen, Thaddeus, for a moment? Living new experiences on different areas. Could be spiritual, could be family relationship with your parents, maybe profession. The thing is, living new experiences, okay, is simple or complex. I'll give an example. Raising your children. Is this simple or complex? Having a good relationship with your spouse. Is this... That was a quick answer right there. Having a stronger connection and relationship with God. It's simple or complex. Losing bad habits is simple or complex. So I know in your mind you're saying complex. But we have a tendency to misunderstand this because simple or complex, it has to do with resources. And we're misunderstanding this, or we are swapping this with being easy and difficult. Two different concepts. Easy and difficult has to do with skills. So let me ask you those questions again. Is raising children simple or complex? It's very simple, but it's not easy if you don't have the skills. Having a good relationship with your spouse, it's simple or complex? It's simple, but it's not easy if you don't have the skills. So now we want to live new experiences, and we need to understand that the reason that a lot of times we got ourselves into trouble, it's because we don't have the skills. We need to develop those skills. But let me ask you this. In life, generally, growing up, what do we pick first? Do we understand? Do we? Let me rephrase this. What is our first choice? Do we choose the skills that we need to have, or we choose the challenges that we pick the challenges that we're going to face? Generally speaking, we pick the challenge. So we pick the girlfriend first without really knowing. We end up marrying without knowing, generally speaking, right? We get the job or maybe the career without really knowing ourselves. And then we were just talking about this, right, at lunchtime. Why do we have so many bad doctors out there? Because a lot of them, they're not after a purpose-driven life. They're after the what? The money. Same, right? I know in Brazil, it's one of the most difficult schools, and I think here too, to get into, because the competition is huge. Then I ask you, did God make more doctors, or say this? Do you think that people were born more towards to being a doctor than a teacher or a pastor or an engineer, or it's a choice that they're making? They're after the money. A lot of them. That's why when they are into the profession, they don't care about the people as they should. They don't, because they were not born to do that. I am generalizing because there are very good doctors out there that were born to do exactly what they're doing. Yes.
Baby. What's it? Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the, sometimes the way society looks at those professions, those titles and the letters after your name, then you get like high esteem among men. And that happens as well. So now let's talk about the human essence, because, according to the Bible, you go to 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. A well-known verse. What does it say there? 1:7. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but power, love, and sound mind. So here's the thing. We were wired this way. The base of this essence is love. Love. Then it said sound mind. What is that? Let's translate into modern language. Sound mind. It's balance. Can we say it's balance? A balanced mind, right? Temperance, ability to reason, to make good decisions. Self-discipline. What is the top? It says power at the top. Now, let's talk about the base of the pyramid first. This love here at the base, it's what we were talking about. We were born, just like a bird was born to fly, Humans were born to love and to be loved because God is love. But the way we receive love is through the languages of love. And every one of us will have different languages of love. So I'm going to put the 5 languages of love. And I'm going to just reference them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have physical touch is the first one. Then we have words of affirmation, the second one. We have quality time. Then we have acts of service. And then, what is the last one? Gifts. Very good. Giving gifts. Giving and receiving gifts. Okay? Now, all of us, we like to transit, to flow through all these 5 love languages. We all like them all. But there's always 1 or 2 that at the very top of our list. Now, it's so important for us to understand our language of love and our spouse's language of love. And the kids. And the parents, if your parents are still alive. And when you start understanding about yourself, it's so much easier to read people. Because you start to pick up. Oh, I see. Like for example, I'll just pick on Chris. What is her language of love? Acts of service. So easy for us to say that, right? Why? She's always showing her love by serving in the kitchen, helping out, and always serve, always acts of service. So that's why it's so important. Now, if you as a child did not receive love, you have a problem when you grow up. Guaranteed. Why? Because these love languages are meant to fulfill what psychology calls the 6 basic necessities of a human being. And the number 1, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but the number 1 is identity. Knowing who you are. When I talk about identity, I'm not talking about male, female. I'm talking about your personality, your natural temperament. If you're hot, if you're cold. I'm not talking about Laodicea here either. I'm talking about the 4 natural temperaments that we were born with. Our personality, our values. Now, if you go and look at all these basic necessities here, you're going to be surprised because some of them, you're going to remember that you did not receive. You did not receive. And if you don't receive this, I'm going to list a few here. Independence. Oops, 1 second. Let me put them in order here. Second. Freedom of choice. Oops. Not freedom of choice. Freedom of expression. Have you ever heard man should not what? Yes. But when you were a kid and you hurt yourself and you make a boo-boo and you're crying, and then your dad maybe stop crying because it doesn't hurt. Man should never cry. Right? Freedom of expression. So a lot of these things are, and our parents sometimes they don't do because they want our bad. They just give what they have, what they receive. Right? Now another important one is autonomy. So letting your child, and this is not the focus here, I'm just going through this. I want to explain something else, but teaching your child to, as he grows, get the autonomy. You know, we're not giraffes or we're not horses that when you're born, you're walking like right away. We need extra care from our parents. But a lot of times, we don't get the autonomy that we need because we tend to overprotect our children. Have you guys heard about that theory about the share bed? There's a line, I think it's positive psychology. I don't remember, but they believe that sharing the bed with your children is something good. Now, we learned this morning that under general anesthesia, patients could what? They could hear it. Things will go into their brains. Remember we were talking about? So what happens if you share your bed with your child when he's a kid and you have intimacy with your spouse? Oh, but he's sleeping. He's not hearing anything. See, that theory came from the bottomless pit of hell. And if you don't like it, where do you put it? The cross. Cross. Now, am I saying that we shouldn't have maybe one day out of the week, we can all come together and have a special day together on the same bedroom? That's okay. But living every day like that, we have a problem. Because either you're not having intimacy with your spouse, and that's a problem, big problem too, if you're a married couple. Or you're having while someone else is in the room. I remember in Loma Linda, I had a colleague that he had this thing. He was an Adventist colleague from work, and he had this idea that, oh no, a share bed, he strengthened the bond between parents and. We also had a neighbor when we were in Brazil. We were married, but Naomi wasn't around yet. That they used to have the baby up to 3-4 years in their bed. They were having intimacy with the baby there. So, you know how the enemy tried to mess up with ourselves. And there's a few more here, like safety, your child, or you as a child. That's a necessity that we all had, to feel safe. You know, there was one point in my life that I didn't feel safe because the way my dad left Brazil, it was traumatic. My dad was my hero. And I didn't realize that until recent, because I didn't know why I didn't cry when my dad passed away during COVID. I couldn't cry. I love my dad. I couldn't cry. I wasn't trying to force my tears, but I couldn't. And I didn't know why. I didn't understand why until recently. I learned that when he left, he was my hero, And because of that, it was an emotional loss, big one that I had. My dad, he was threatening to take me to the United States when he divorced my mom, to the point that the federal police was guarding the airport. Okay? It was, long story short, the police got involved. They were all in watch in case that he would try to kidnap me and take me to the U.S. He was just picking me up at school, shopping with some gifts, and then he delivered me back to my grandparents. But when he left, to me as a kid, 3-4-year-old, it was a huge loss. And today I realize that that event made me go into my shell. I started being timid, shy, didn't want to be around people anymore. And I learned that before, when my dad was around, I would go with anyone. As a baby, I would love to be around people. Something changed. An event took place that changed the way I would behave. And now all of a sudden, I'm shy. I don't want to go to school anymore. I just want to be with mom. Every time I hear the keychain on the door, I would run to the door because I was afraid that I would be left alone. See? Was my mom doing this on purpose? No, she was living her life. She was trying to do the best she could. But it's not about her perception, it's about my perception. And that was a big problem for me. So anyways, there's a few more here. My point is this. If we want to live a powerful life, we need to make balanced decisions, balanced choices. And in order to do that, to make assertive choices, we need to have love. And unless we have this filled or fulfilled in our lives, we won't be able to fill the tank of love here. And because of that, we're going to have what we call excesses in our life. Every excess is explained by a fault or a lack. So I mentioned a few weeks ago about this show, My 600-Pound Life or something like that. It's the story about Doug. Doug was 680 pounds. He was about to die. He had a small baby, just 2 twins. They had born like maybe, and then another kid. His wife was doing all the chores, all the work, because he couldn't move without her helping. He was being a burden to the whole family. Long story short, I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but what happened was they signed up for that doctor in Houston to do the bariatric surgery, but the doctor says, unless you lose 50 pounds and prove to me that you're capable of doing or being committed to this, I'm not going to do the surgery. It took him 2 months to lose 50 pounds. He did. They signed up for surgery, and he had surgery. He started losing some weight, but short after he stopped losing. Was weight an excess in his life? Yes. Now, they reduced the stomach, the intestines, and everything, and yet, even with that, he couldn't lose weight. So what was the problem? Yeah, he was cheating, he was snacking all the time, he was going around, but even with a small stomach and less intestines, he was still gaining weight. So the episode shows that the doctor, he identifies an emotional problem. And hearing about other episodes, I always something like that. It's always something emotional that is behind this excess. And in his case, the excess was weight, but it could be overspending, it could be overworking, like being a workaholic, drugs, pornography. There's so many excess in our lives that could be afflicting us. Every single one, it's explained by not the excess, but by the fault. In other words, our brains are very intelligent, and it's always looking after the dopamine, the pleasure, the reward. And if we're not getting reward or love in some area, some important area of our life, our brain tend to do what? Compensate. And then they found out that he had a problem with his mom. The mom left. Very similar to my story, but it was his mom. And because of that wound that was not healed in his history, he got an addiction and caused an excess in his life. So every excess is explained by a fault or a lack. But, well, if everything starts in the mind, right? I heard this story about a woman that she sought help because she was overworking. And then the coach was asking, okay, but is this your current job? Is that what? No, it happened on the job that I had before. How about the one before? Yeah, I overwork on the other job too. So he found out that was not the work. It was not the job that was asking her to stay longer. So they did a little exercise, and he asked her to tell him, like, loudly, the steps that she would take when leaving the job, because she would stay like 2-3 hours after everyone left. Something was going on that was causing her to stay in the office overtime. And then they go through the process, and then she says, okay, now I'm home. I get into the elevator, and I'm about to knock at the door or to open the door, but I can't. So he asks, what is on the other side of the door that you just can't? And then she says, my twin boys. The twin boys. Why? What's wrong with him? Well, because if I go, they're going to ask me to play with them, and I don't have the energy or the desire to. What a sad story. And then the coach says, okay, tell me what happened that in your past when you were pregnant, that you don't feel that you are a good mom, that you don't feel validated, legitimized as a mother. And then she was able to go back and get that memory from her brain, saying that, yes, we were very young, and up to 4-5 months, I tried to lose the baby, to force abortion. I was jumping from a chair because I learned this, that, especially twins, it's easy to have a natural miscarriage, and I was jumping around from the bed to the floor and trying to abort the baby, force a miscarriage. Now she feels that she's not legit as she seeks help because of something like her career. And they find that the problem was not there. It was in a complete different area of her life. Why? Well, because the brain is trying to compensate. She would stay over hours or after hours because she didn't want to deal with family. Very sad. So it's really hard for us to leave this love here or to have this fulfilled because of something that we call pain. Pain, it's like the tares that is sown in our life. Sometimes they grow together with the wheat and we don't perceive until the fruits come up. There is a quote by Lisa Feldman. Let's switch to that slide. Right there. This book, she's an atheist, but she's a neuroscientist. And she says that in every working moment, your brain uses past experience, organized as concepts, to guide your actions and give your sensations meaning. In other words, what she's saying is that the way we give meaning to the present, it's based on our past experience. I'm going to try to explain to you in a very simple way. Switch back to So we have a model I call this PPF, which is past, present, and future. And in the past, we have memories. These memories are divided into two categories. The first memories are memories of pain. The second, memories of hope. In the future, we have projections. Our projections and also are divided into two. Projections of fear and projections of meaning. Now, there is a verse in the Bible, in the book of John, chapter 10, verse 10, that says that the thief, he comes to steal, destroy, there's one more, kill. Now, what the devil does, he sows pain in our life, in our mind, so we will project a future of fear. And at the same time, destroy the meaning. So, think about a child that was abused when she was a kid. Now, every time now, as she grows, and if she doesn't heal that memory of pain, I'll ask you this, do you think it will be easy for her to get into a relationship and have a healthy sexual life? If that wound's still open, it will project what? Fear. Very much so. It might destroy the meaning of pleasure under sexual intimacy. I gave that example this morning. If someone is raised on a household that the parents are always fighting, always arguing, it was a horrible experience, what kind of projection that in the mind of that girl or boy? What kind of projection of marriage? Fear. He might say, I might end up like my parents. It might destroy even the meaning of marriage. Oh, marriage is not for me. How about if your mom and dad were not a good mom and dad? Could that also destroy the meaning of parenthood for you? Oh, I don't want to have children. Word is too evil to have children. Have you heard those sayings? The word has been evil for a long time. And if your parents would thought like that, you wouldn't be here. So, these memories of pain will project fear, and it will destroy the meaning on areas of our life. So, what happens in the present? If I would ask you, what is the most important time, the past, the present, or the future? Many people will say the present, because that's when we make what? Action. We can shape the future by the actions we take today. But to make an action, we want to make sure the action is assertive. Why do you think a lot of people, they don't accept Jesus? Do you think because the gospel is weak? Do you think maybe because the sermon was not good or the experience was not good? A lot of times, and I'll say most of the times, because to make it an assertive action, you need to heal some wounds in your life, even to accept Christ. Much more for other things in your life. Now, to make an assertive actions or an assertive action, we need to have the correct timing, and we also need to be precise. So now, every time we are here in the present and we are confronted by a situation, a decision we have to make, what does our brain do? 80% of the time goes back to the past, and it gathers all the information we had on our bank memory, on our library. And he pulls all those references and our books and say, okay, I've seen this before, what was the outcome? And then he scans all that, and based on that information, you make the decision. How about if your information is based on pain? Remember, it's all about the experiences that you lived, not that somebody else lived. Because maybe that girl thinks that every single marriage is like that. Is that true? No. But every single marriage that she lived around was like that. Then she believes that's her truth. It's her perception. See how the brain works? It's not about what is real, it's about the way we see. What can we see through our lenses? That's our reality. So if every single man that went through your life was a bad person, was cheating you, was mistreating you, it doesn't mean all men are like that. It means that all men that you're drawn to you are like that. Now your reality becomes that, wow, every man is like that. Is that true? True. Is that making sense to you? So, because of that pain, because of this, we make bad decisions all the time. And that will lead us into what we call the self-sabotage cycle. Or, as I think you said this morning, right? Hereditary curse. Or you said another generational sin. You end up repeating patterns. You end up doing the same thing your parents did, your mom did, the way your dad treated your mom, now you're treating your wife. That kind of thing. It's a cycle. Why is this happening? I'm going to try to explain to you in a very simple way. So, let's say we have a seed over here. A small seed. And we call this seed pain. So I'm going to call an event. What can we call this? I'm going to call injustice, okay? A perception of injustice or an event of injustice that happened with you. Now, this seed will try to go through your mind, and eventually it will break through, and it will get on your emotion. What? Sorry? Oh, okay. So let me give you the steps of this. The seed gets into the mind, into your emotions, and then the first stage is the root process. And then after the root, well, let's give some names here. The root process is where you get hatred, maybe bitterness, okay? Then you have a second stage, which is the stem. The stem is where you get resentment. Resentment. Then you have the third stage, which is the flower. Not the Danny flower. The flower, which is the victim mentality. And I'll explain this to you in a minute. And then the last one is the fruit. The fruit is the undeserving. What? So sorry. Fruit. Undeserving. Thank you. Now, what do we have inside the fruit? Seed. So another seed over here. And we're going to see there are 7 traits that this seed can produce. And the seed will go back and continue the cycle. Now, let me break this down. So I'm going to get an example. I'm going to get adultery as an example, okay, so we can illustrate this. So let's say you were cheated, and now that event of injustice get into your emotions, and it gets into the root phase. Now, the root phase, you have hate, you have hatred, and you're bitter about it. What does the person on that stage typically do? He complains about the event. They might say to their coworkers, I was cheated. Horrible. I know how you feel because I was there too. Always complaining about the event. That's the first stage. But soon enough, it goes to the second stage that now they're not complaining only about the event, they're complaining about what? The person. Complaining about the person. Now you may say to your kids, your dad, that man, cheated me. Don't be like your dad. You shouldn't be like your dad. You're a different person. Always complaining about the person. But it doesn't stop there. If you don't stop, if you don't make something, you'll keep growing in the natural process. And now, you're not only complaining about the event, you're not complaining about the person, you're complaining about everything and everyone. Now you're saying, every man is like that. They're all cheaters. See how it's growing? Now you complain about everything. Everyone. And then the last stage now is destroy the meaning of marriage in this case, or remarriage. We have a friend that she had a bad experience with marriage, and we were talking with her last time we were in Brazil. And I was asking her some questions, and I made her realize that what she was doing was just repeating. In other words, she was drawing the same kind of person that her father was into her life. And she was deep into this self-sabotage cycle, because now to her, marriage makes no sense. She's young, she's pretty, she's a pretty girl, and she doesn't want to get married. Worse than that, she doesn't want to even get close into a relationship, or she's not open to know people. Why? Because this process here ends up destroying the meaning of marriage. And every time you see someone with this kind of thinking that is not natural, let me ask you this. Did God create man to be alone? No. So it's not natural to be alone. Unless you are called for that purpose, naturally, generally speaking, it's not good for man to be alone. Is it good for man not to have children? No. It's natural to do what? Go and multiply. Right? To have children. So when you have people saying, I don't want to get married, or you have people say, I don't want to have kids, what are they telling? If you see someone saying, I don't want to have kids, you're basically telling that you hate yourself so much they're not willing to multiply that, what God gave you. This is bad. And there is a movement out there that promote all these kind of ideas that women should be independent, they should not be bound to a family, that they should care for their professions and not for family because they're not slaves. Crazy. So this is the self-sabotage cycle in a nutshell. But what is important for us to understand is that there are 7 seeds that can come out of this rotten fruit. And these are the characteristics of this cycle. There's 7. Read together. First one. Someone that is into that cycle, they're not showing all of them. They can show 1, 2, or more than 1. Typically, they will show 1 or 2. So the first one is to be drawn to people with traits similar to the aggressor. So, I'm not going to say the city because maybe some of you will know what I'm talking about, but we know people that she was abused when she was a kid. And she suffered with that, and we were aware of that. But what happened was, they were working, or she was working for a church. And after, I don't know, maybe a couple years, the husband, I'm going to give you like high level. The husband found out that someone at the church, the pantry at the church, was raping her every day. It was a horrible story. First question that was risen, why would she allow that to happen? And how she was drawing those kind of people to her. If she had the experience before, would you agree that she would at least know what that looked like? She was consenting. And then some people say, well, maybe she wanted it. Maybe she liked it. But when you dive into how the brain works, what she was doing, she was drawing people with the same traits of the first aggressor she had, which happened when she was a child. Why? How do we do that? How science explains that? See, 90%, almost 90% of our communication is nonverbal. We communicate with our posture, with our tone, with the volume of our voice, with our manners, with our gestures. 85% is nonverbal. And that lady, she was drawing to her people with the same traits of her first aggressor. In other words, the abuser, the aggressor, he could read on her body that she was the victim, she was vulnerable. Have you ever heard that show or that documentary about that guy that he deceived people in Tinder, that app? What do you call that? I don't know I don't remember the name. But he was basically cheating people or dating app, Tinder, yeah. He was deceiving the girls through, a scam. He basically a scammer. Catfishing, yes. He was doing that. And he would know what victims to target. It was not everyone. It was not a random choice. No, he would study them. He would know the characteristics and everything. He would be very sad. Yeah, he was a Jew guy. He's a guy from Israel. I think that's the one. Yeah, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, exactly right. So why would those girls fall for that kind of speech or love? Because they did not receive love. They never sat on the lap of the first man, which would be the dad. See, if you love your daughter with that perfect love that the Bible talks about, your daughter will easily identify those scammers, because she'll say, I know love, that's not love. Because my dad loved me. So she'll be able to identify. But think about someone that never received love from the parents, from the dad. Remember, the brain will not discern if you don't know. How can he know what is false if he doesn't know what is true? Second one. It's the opposite. To have the same traits of the aggressor. Now, I'm going to give an example from our family, but I'll give a biblical example too. My father-in-law, her biological father, he cheated on her mom for a long time, and it caused a lot of suffering for the family. But guess what his dad did? Same thing. He was just having the same traits of his father. So the acts of his father caused pain to the family, and unconsciously he was just replicating that because that's what he had. That's the reference that I keep missing my letters here. You keep me straight, guys. Keep me straight here. Now let's go to the Bible. How about what did Ammon, what did he do to Tamar, his sister? He raped her, right? Was he just replicating something that his father did, perhaps? What did David do with Bathsheba? So those are the cycles that we keep getting ourselves into. Number 3, to become vulnerable. To the rescuers. Narrative. So, in other words, some people, they can only take action when there is a rescuer. Someone that comes in their rescue. And I have a biblical example too. Just find it here. This is someone that premeditates an escape plan. Now, we also have friends that they were very young, and on both households, it was dysfunctional. And they wanted to get married. They want to get out. See, they didn't really were ready to get married, but they want to get out of the house because it was so painful in the house. So now they become vulnerable. The first man that gives a proposal, guess what happens? Without much thinking, they just go. Because they are on an escape route. And a lot of times they cannot, many times or most of the times the outcome is not, it's not very good. Number 4. This is about compensation. So this is about the excess and the lack. That's what we were talking about. People that are into these cycles, they tend to avoid experiences in the area that they were affected. The area of aggression, so we speak. For example, Leah from the Bible. Leah, she deceived with Laban, Jacob, and because of that, Jacob did not love her, right? What did she try to do to try to compensate that lack of love? Of children. Did that work? There are more problems in the family. So trying to compensate the lack in one area with excess. Number 5, I'm going really fast through this. Number 5, avoid new experiences in the area. Experience. Oh my Lord. Experience, right? And experiences, right? Experiences. Yeah, you guys making me nervous here. That's fine. Avoid new experiences where? In the area. Oops, in the area you were hurt. So that example, that lady that she didn't want to marry or remarry because it was so bad, my previous experience, that I don't want to have to do that again or go through that again. And then that's why I have my Portuguese version here. That's why I was Number 6, manipulation. Now you're trying to manipulate others to think the way you are, the way you think. Or manipulate them to think that you are right. You're seeking allies instead of seeking for help. So you go and you complain without really wanting their help. You actually want an ally. Just be on your side. Do we have examples? How about the serpent garden? How about Absalom? In Hebron, he was saying, oh yeah, I'm not complaining about my dad, but I can't do much. Manipulation. And then the last one on this list is orphanhood. Or loneliness. You feel that you're undeserved. You're basically destroying the meaning of life. Now, this is what's happening when we let this seed of injustice to penetrate our emotions. But what can we do to stop this? To shield this barrier, or to make a barrier here? We can shield our mind. What is shielding our mind? It's much like prevention. Prevention. Just like we prevent physical health, we can prevent things from happening with our emotions. We can set some boundaries, some limits, healthy limits around our emotions, so we can be in a better shape emotionally. Okay, so I want you guys to do something with me. There is an assessment. Get your phones, scan that QR code, and you're going to see an assessment. I think there are like 20 quick questions. I want you to take that assessment and let's see how healthy is your mind as far as shielding the mind from these seeds, these external seeds of injustice. So if you have hard time scanning that, let us know. We'll help you. But you should pop up that quiz. That is, you can put maybe a little hymn or song or